I'm going to pick you up on your finance people, because I would have been the finance person who would have felt, and I think I do think a lot of finance people feel like this, is that finance needs to be in the office. It's one of those functions that needs to be in the office. Now, a lot of finance people might way prefer to work at home because it's quieter, but actually nobody wanted to talk to you in the first place. So you had very little chance of knowing what was going on around the office unless you were in there. And I do think as well, it was one of those roles that when people had problems or whatever, they needed to be able to sit down face to face. It's really hard to explain something over Zoom about your finances. You know, it's much easier to sit down with someone, I think, and talk things through. So yeah, they may have looked at the cost, but I don't think anyone ever considered the buildings as that cost that was negotiable either. So, you know, your rent or your building or whatever is always a fairly standard cost. You know, it's a fixed cost every year. It's not one you ever really thought about.
Yeah.
Could we move to the sticks and save lots and lots of money? But you will find perhaps that businesses are more likely to start opening outside of the big centres. Yeah. As people start to move outwards a bit. You can have companies anywhere, because actually, even if they come together to work together in a small office, they can do the work anywhere in the world. And that's a big benefit.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, as a global organization, if you have little hubs, rather than, like you say, having this big expensive HQ in a very expensive city, you've got 5 hubs in smaller places that, you know, still have facilities. It's just one of those things, isn't it, where you can have, like you said, you can have some difficult conversations, as much as they may, as a manager, keep you awake the night before you have to have them. Having that conversation face to face, as hard as that may be, is so much better than having that conversation like this, because you can genuinely see how someone is reacting and responding, and you can check in on them a little bit later. Because if you have a conversation with someone and you're giving them feedback that they are maybe not expecting, or you know they're not going to manage or handle very well, it's so easy to avoid. You have that conversation, they go, they don't have to pick up their phone, they don't have to. Whereas if you're in the office, you can pop back half an hour later and just go, you okay? And it might be, okay, you know, do you want to go home? Okay, fine, go. You know, it just gives you, well, that's just the way that I used to do stuff like that.
Oh no, I got on planes to have those conversations. I mean, I would go to where the person, their home country or their home office, to have those conversations, because I felt they needed to be surrounded by people who knew them, because some of them were, you know, ones that ended their employment, and they needed to be done in person, I always felt. And sometimes we would bring them to headquarters, depending on the circumstances, but we would make it as easy as possible, or I would, for the difficult conversation to be in the best circumstances. If that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think, but that's a kindness and a generosity, isn't it? Because if things have got to that point and you've done everything you can to avoid getting to that point, and you've put all the support into place, and you've done everything you can, and it still just isn't going to work, the human thing is to do it as kindly and supportively as possible. It's not always received,
but that's beside the point.
But
I mean, that's the
you can't control that,
and that's in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And but again, however it's received, if you're doing it in the place that is best for them, however they react to that, they're in the right place to react in whatever way they want to do. And you can't do any more than that. And I think it's those relationships that you develop over time with people, the depth of those relationships of being physically in the same room, sharing energy, is completely different to these. And I've met and developed really, really strong relationships with some people over the last year that I've met through LinkedIn, that I've met through networking, and that we've developed really, really strong working relationships. But I cannot wait till I can go and have a coffee with those people, because that is when it will absolutely cement to that next level. And it's great. And we have a brilliant relationship and we work really well together and stuff's taking off. It's fabulous. But once we have sat and had a cup of coffee and physically shared the excitement of what we're doing, it's like with us. I can't wait till we can go and sit and have a coffee in that little Dutch coffee, if it's still open, if it will open, that, you know.
You'll find somewhere, don't worry. There's plenty of coffee places.
I just want to go down for that really big cinnamon bun. But just that will be the first. It's almost like discount that first catch up, because nothing of any productive nature will come out of it, because it will just be, oh my God, the excitement. And I think that's the bit of being around people in the office as well, is that same thing. And there'll be people who feel that same sense of excitement, but then there'll be the people who are not coming in as excited and who know that it's good for them to come back and know that that's what is needed, but will be doing it without necessarily wanting to put themselves out there. I'm just quite out there, so I forget that not everybody else. There's somebody who put on LinkedIn last year about like how almost like having wristbands of different colours, which, so green was like, yeah, bring it on. Yellow was, yeah, it's all fine, and then red was just leave me alone. And
yeah,
we almost need something that visual to, or just make sure that everybody's had that conversation, that you've not necessarily, not as a team, not as everybody in that group, but every individual has spoken to every other individual within that team and been really upfront and really clear about, I'm really looking forward to seeing you, but I don't want a hug, I don't want you in my face, I just want to go in and get on with my job.
I suppose I'm always wary of labels, and because all the greens will get together and forget about the blues and the reds, and the yellows will be crying in the corner or whatever it is. In a way,
yeah,
it's probably harder if you're in a new organization and you've only been working with people remotely and you've never actually met them. But people who knew each other before, I think they'll get on normally and know each other's boundaries or whatever. And it's important for you to say, actually, I don't want to hug you because whatever, or blah, blah, blah. And in a way, people need to be responsible for how they feel, and they need to be responsible enough to let others know.
Yeah.
And yeah, but then everyone's different. I mean, that's me. I'd have every color wristband on just to annoy everyone.
I just come over and hug you anyway. But it's true, actually, because I was talking to a client a couple of weeks ago, and they've got quite a few new people. They've grown quite rapidly, and they are starting to talk about moving things back to the office, and but again, they've said 80-20, your choice. Actually, we're all doing 80-20. You can do what you can choose, 80% in the office, 80% at the home. It's fine. But that day, if you are going to do one day in the office, it needs to be a day that most people are in. And they've got about 4 people that are brand new and have never worked as part of that team. And that's almost 50% of the entire team. And that's going to be a really, really interesting. And they're all the existing team are very, very established and have been together for a long time. And then there's more people coming in who are all brand new, quite different because it's a different, sort of slightly different direction. And that's going to be fascinating to watch. And but they're being really proactive about the conversations that they're having. And you know, they were employed on the basis that you will be able to work flexibly.
So yeah, so that says it in their employment contract, but now
And
sorting out the psychological contract
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah.
It's walking the talk.
Yeah.
There's going to be a perception for everyone that they've been treated fairly or unfairly, or that this new way is fair or it isn't fair. And that's going to be individual.
Yeah.
And so again, it is up to employers, employees, and actually I should just go managers and people, because everybody is a person that fills any of those roles, to really think about this and what does fair mean to them, and to understand that what's fair to you may not be fair to someone else, but there has to be a balance. And I think that's what it's about, is the scale might be a bit like this, but a bit of understanding where you're comfortable and meeting people where they're comfortable and working it out between you is what's important.
Yeah, I think absolutely it is. You've got to take responsibility for your own route back, or route forward. It's not back, is it? It's for, you've got to be responsible for your own route forward, and you've got to have the confidence and assertiveness to be clear about what will work best for you. And as an organization, as a manager, you've got to make sure, if you don't know how anybody in your team is feeling, you have got to start asking those questions. And it might be uncomfortable for you, because if those are not conversations you've ever had before or that you like having, that's even more important, because these are obviously things that have never been discussed before.
Maybe that's what we talk about next. But let's leave it on a positive note, because actually I think there's opportunity there for everyone to have a better work life by sorting this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's worth the effort.
Oh, yes.